Hey everybody, Larry, Fort Worth Memories Museum and Group, and Fort Worth Memories Political Group. I am fixing to tune in with Brooks McKenzie. I need more than one person, so let's see if we can get a couple of more people right quick. And then we'll give Brooks a call. We've got three. Let's just get two or three more, and then I'm going to give Brooks a call, and we're going to discuss Rustin Wright's case that's coming up. Now, I'm going to have all three of these experts, Brooks McKenzie, Jeff Younger, and Jeff Morgan, in a roundtable discussion on Saturday. It's going to start at 10, and it'll probably go a couple of hours. Hey, Crystal. So this case that we're going to be discussing started when Rustin's son, Aiden, was a month old. Well, 17 years later, we're still in court over it. So we got a few people on. I'm going to tune in to Brooks. Well, it's called fail. How's that?
You've reached Dr. Brooks McKenzie. Please leave your name.
Hello.
This is Brooks. I didn't pick it up in time.
That's all right, Brooks. We're live on the political group. I talked to Jeff Younger earlier today. I haven't reached out to Jeff Morgan, but I wanted to get your... you doing okay this evening?
And then just to let you know, I live way, way out in the boonies.
Okay.
So I'm standing on my back porch because this is the only place I get reception. So if there's background noise, I apologize for that.
Not a problem. What I want to try to let our listeners know, what is your expertise in these cases?
In what is specific, you mean just what is my expertise in general?
Yeah, is it with how it damages the child?
So I've got just a basic bachelor's degree in psychology, which is essentially worthless. I have a master's degree in clinical psychology, which is psychopathology, so mental illness, borderline, bipolar, depression, all the stuff that has to do with mental illness. And my PhD is in experimental and developmental psychology. So experimental means I'm a researcher, not a counselor. I don't care anything about counseling.
Okay.
I look at the research. And developmental is basically from the time you're created inside your mama to the day you die. But my area of expertise is the parent-child relationship.
Okay.
The importance of that relationship and what happens to children when they don't have a healthy relationship with the parent, or when you sever or break it, damage it, take the parent out of the equation, take the child away, whether it's CPS, DFPS, the family courts, whatever, the damage you do to that child across their entire lifespan. They never get over it. It's something that lasts to the day they die.
Okay.
So that's where I come from it.
As
a researcher.
And I'm a historian and I research stuff. There's been several, like during World War II or during Hitler's era, they on purpose, they did break up the
kids
family.
out of this. They took the kids out of the cities that were getting bombed. I can't remember what they called them.
Yes.
And they sent them to the countryside. And they actually did research on those children when they grew up later and found out how much they had damaged them by taking them. Was it best? They were taking them out of the bombing areas. probably for some of them, but that these children as adults were severely damaged from being taken away from their parents.
That's exactly right. And that's been proven that they did that. They've got notes and stuff on it, research papers. So,
Yeah.
I'm a newcomer on this family court stuff, but I promise you, I think some of these judges or lawyers, I think they are taking dead aim at trying to break the families up. I mean, they're not trying to find a solution. They're trying to destroy the family. Is the way I see it.
So I don't. If I'm an attorney in that area, I don't make any money if it agrees on stuff and it's amicable.
Right.
All right. And I make a whole lot of money if we have to keep going back to court over and over and over and over again.
Right.
So usually the only times you ever see that is when someone has immense wealth, so like they're literally battling over millions or tens of millions of dollars, so they keep going back and fighting, or someone has kids, because this is a pawn by the courts. And if you think about where did most of the judges on the bench come from? Well, they were family attorneys a few days before they became a judge.
Right.
So they're already used to playing that game. They know exactly what it is. And honestly, there's so many relationships between them, because if you're a family court judge where I live, although it's a little different because it's so small, you know all the other family attorneys. So there's no way you can possibly sit on the bench and not have a relationship with the vast majority of them.
Right.
And so, the whole system is a rigged system, but it's a massive industry. It's $3.8 billion with a B dollars a year in Texas, and that's just for the court stuff. That doesn't include all the courses and trainings and counselors and all these other people who latch on, because I know of a child custody evaluator in Travis County, so down in Austin, and it's a mess down there. It's a mess everywhere. And so far, one of the parents has had to pay her $60,000 for a child custody evaluation.
That's horrible.
And, well, yeah, because they keep coming back and redoing it. And this specific person is almost the only person these courts use in certain courts. So everybody knows each other. Everybody's in on the game. Everybody knows, the outcome often before you even have a hearing.
Right.
I've witnessed judges in Tarrant County tell parents that they will never, ever get a hearing ruled in their favor.
Yes.
And they haven't even heard the evidence. They haven't even started. And that's against the law. They say, I am going to rule against you every chance I get, no matter what.
I don't see how they get away with that.
Oh, well, there's no recourse, meaning so you can complain to the state commission on judicial conduct in Austin.
Right.
They get about 1,600 complaints a year. And it's not a full-time job. They meet once a quarter. They have some other meetings. So it's not even a full-time job. So if you take 1,600 and divide it by the days of the year and then throw in some vacation time and weekends, they would literally have to clear 4 to 5 cases a day at a part-time job. And then they don't have the power to subpoena or request court transcripts. So they can't ask for them. So if you file a complaint, you're supposed to provide them, which can cost $6,000, $7,000, $10,000, depending on if it's a trial or a hearing or what. Or if you're complaining about multiple hearings, you're looking at thousands of dollars. So have that kind of money because they've already been bled dry by the attorneys. So the place you complain to doesn't have the power to actually get the evidence they need. And so we've got recordings, and there's also interviews done in 2019 by multiple members of the committee saying we literally can't do our job, and it's a joke. So they don't do anything. They don't have the ability to do anything. They don't have the money to pay for an investigation. So they get on the phone, and this comes from someone currently sitting on the commission who we have an audio interview with. And he says, so we're left with calling the judge and saying, did you do this? And the judge says, nope, I didn't do that. Okay, case closed. So that's how judges get investigated. The other remedy is having them impeached, but according to state representatives that we've spoken with, there hasn't been an impeachment in 2 decades. So either all of our judges are immaculately ethical and unbelievable above every other industry in our country, or it's just simply not used. So all the things on paper that are supposed to oversee these judges don't. And when you really look at it, you have the fox guarding the hen house.
Yes.
So when you complain, I use analogies, and I don't want anybody to get offended by this, but so a black man in 50s out, when they showed up at night with the Klan on the horseback and they burned his house, raped his wife, and killed his kids, the person he's supposed to go complain to the next day is the guy who was sitting on the horseback with the torch.
Right.
All right. So was it legal for all that to do? Kill his family, rape his wife? No, it wasn't legal. But the person who's supposed to be enforcing the law is in on the game. And we have the exact same thing with our family courts.
Right.
What they're doing is not legal. It's not constitutional. It's not even legal according to Texas law. But the people you complain to is the person who was sitting in that judge's seat or that attorney's chair last year or 6 months ago.
Right.
So you're literally complaining to the people who just did it to you. And so it's a ridiculous system. It's utterly corrupt.
Yeah. So, just a question to throw out there. If we keep applying public awareness and screaming our heads off, are we ever going to get anybody? I mean, I know Greg Abbott personally. He called me the other day and said, "What are you stirring up there now?" And I said, "Greg, you need to send an investigator down here."
Well, yes. But one of the problems is that Greg Abbott in 2019 vetoed a bill that would have made the State Commission on Judicial Conduct transparent. They operate in secret. So if they do something, they don't have to tell the public. And if they don't do something, they don't have to tell the public. They literally don't have to tell the public anything. And Abbott actually vetoed a bill to make it transparent. And that's when multiple people on the commission came out and did interviews, and I believe it was the Austin American Statesman or one of the papers down there, saying this is the most ridiculous thing. We are literally watching judges commit felony crimes, and we're doing absolutely nothing to them.
So what's the answer?
Legislative changes. So there are many legislators who are open to introducing legislation that will change this entire system, basically bringing it to its knees and hold those accountable, because there shouldn't be anybody in our country, let alone our state, who has the ability to openly commit crimes and never get prosecuted for it.
Right.
Again, you're old enough, and I'm old enough. 40 years ago, cop could shoot you in the back, throw a bag of weed on you. 20 people would say, I saw him shoot him in the back, so that cop wouldn't even get put on death duty, let alone prosecuted.
Right.
I mean, because the cops were monitoring the cops.
Right.
But when body cams and cell phone videos came out and the public got so outraged that the politicians could no longer let that slide, that's when police started getting prosecuted. I love the cops. I love the cops, but I don't love dirty cops. That's when dirty cops started getting prosecuted. And some of them said, and counties and police departments started getting sued. But before that, you couldn't do anything to them. So we're kind of in the same space that if enough people get furious and contact their legislators and put pressure on them, that these laws will get passed and we'll have the same result. We'll be able to hold these attorneys and these judges who openly commit crimes, violate the Constitution in the name of best interest of the child or discretion or whatever they want to call it, that they will literally get criminally prosecuted and they can be open to civil litigation from people that they've screwed over.
Right. Well, this case that we're going to be discussing Saturday, Rustin Wright, I cannot believe this case started when his child, Aiden, was 1 month old. That child is now 17 years old.
Yep, it's been going on for almost 18 years.
I mean,
so
that's
18 years of attorney's fees. 18 years. I mean, he's paid for somebody's lost boat, and so's the mother. Imagine what a boon that was for the attorneys who got that.
Yeah, it's just how could you be in court for 18 years? I mean,
Because
people
that's
commit
the
murder
system.
and they call it manslaughter, and they get sentenced out of prison and been working on the job for 10 years, less than 18 years.
People can commit murder, get out of prison in 4 years, and still be a parent to their child.
Sure.
But when you go into family court, you can have done absolutely nothing to your child ever, as far as abuse, neglect, or deprivation or anything goes, and not be allowed to see your child whatsoever.
Exactly. And be threatened
And
with, I'm going to take your child away and adopt it out. I'm going to put you in jail. I mean,
oh yeah.
I've only.
And that in itself isn't only with the family courts. Our CPS and DFPS, Department of Family and Protective Services, and Child Protective Services operate in the same manner. They also have a level of immunity because they're a state agency, although it's a lot easier to sue them in federal court. But they will threaten people and remove people and put people's kids in. I mean, all you have to do is Google federal lawsuit CPS, and the federal government is threatening to come in and take over DFPS because just the way they did our prisons in the 90s, because it's such a hot mess that they don't even know where all the children under their care are living. They don't track them. They also don't track the ones that run away, nor do they track the ones that have died in their care because they're not required to. And now nobody has data to say that they're not doing a good job.
It's just unbelievable. I interviewed a CPS. He worked for the CPS for many years. He had been a judge. He had been an attorney, or he was an attorney. And so I said, well, how come all of these CPS cases, they're not in court for years and years and years? He said, simple. The litigants don't have any money.
Yeah, there's no money to be made off of it.
So that's telling you that
there is money to be made in putting children in foster care.
Sure.
The federal government actually gives our state money every time a child is removed from their home. And then they give our state money every time they're foster care, and they give our state money every time they're adopted out. So there actually is money to be made by removing children from the home.
Unbelievable.
And then the equivalent to that is Title 4D in child support. So anytime a parent is put on child support, and it says in the family code to maximize, the judge is ordered to maximize the amount of child support. So every time a parent's put on child support, the federal government gives the state money. And the more child support, the more money the state gets. That's why they're ordered to maximize it. And then the attorney general takes their cut, and they send the rest to the county that ordered it. And then the county is allowed to pay their judges, their court staff, put it into the judge's retirement fund. So the judge is literally funding their retirement funds and sometimes their salaries by breaking up families and putting a parent on child support who doesn't need to be on child support and might in some cases need to be the primary parent, but they make more so I can order more child support. Now I get more money from my county, and we made $89 million last year from the federal government just from child support bonus payments from the federal government.
Unbelievable. It's just, it never ceases to amaze me what our government does, and it's in this case it's these judges, and they know that there's no oversight committee, and so they're playing God up on the behind the their bench.
Yeah, and I've witnessed multiple judges tell a party who's breaking the law, you can't do that. Tell that parent, what are you going to do about it? There's nothing. Nobody's going to do anything. What are you going to do about it? And the attorneys won't report it. They're required to report it, but they don't, because if I'm an attorney and I report that judge, unless I'm a rock star and everybody knows me, I just tank my career. I'll never get appointed to the bench if I want to be on the bench. I'll never get a job at a big law firm. that, because I'm a troublemaker. So everybody in that courtroom has a responsibility to report unethical or illegal behavior, but they never do it. Judges don't report attorneys for it, and attorneys don't report judges for it. Everybody just kind of plays the game. Wink, wink, nod, nod, nothing to see here, Ma. Everything's just fine.
And it's just like in Tarrant County here, it seems like judges and attorneys can use different firms to do these psych evaluations, but it seems like they always go to this one. That seems, to me, they're getting favoritism.
Well, there's favoritism, there's personal relationships, and in a lot of cases, so, and this is just a simple example, but anybody who's ever hired an attorney knows exactly what I'm talking about. So you get an attorney, and the attorney always wants a certain judge. Why? Well, because the judge is fair? No, because they know them.
Yes.
And by law, you're not supposed to be in front of a judge that you have a relationship with. But it happens all over the place. And I know it happens in Tarrant County. Someone actually just sent me a bunch of stuff today listing judges who have personal relationships with attorneys who argue cases in front of them. And you can't do that. And so it's one big, everybody's in on the game. But as far as these evaluators go, if I don't do evaluations for the court because they're worthless for the most part. But if you're an evaluator who gets to be, quote, a chosen one, like this woman I was speaking about in Travis County, she charged one parent $60,000. And so I've reviewed that evaluation, and it's probably 1, maybe 2 weeks worth of work. So she was making about $30,000 a week off of one parent. It's extremely lucrative. You can make so much, and you don't have to be competent. All you have to do is come in and say what the court wants you to say. Because if you're an evaluator and you're assigned to a case and you come in and tell a judge you've done the exact wrong thing, you have damaged this child, you have severely harmed it, and if you keep going down this road, you can guarantee that this kid will never meet their potential and might actually end up homeless on the streets at Union Gospel Mission. And you'll never get appointed again. So you come in, if you have no ethics and morals, and you just tell the judge, oh yeah, that's great. I found exactly what you wanted me to find.
Yeah.
And then you will get appointed again and again and again, and you can charge outrageous amounts of money for it.
Right. And it's just a racket. I said that from day one. And there's a law that they used back in New York, Giuliani. It's called the RICO statute.
RICO Act, yes.
And so
I actually know some people who are investigating that right now with regards to the family court.
I know some people too.
Yep.
So all they have to do is have a couple of people in concert. It doesn't even have to go to the judges. It can be a court coordinator and a bailiff, or an attorney and whatever. And they can go in there and arrest everybody in the court. So some of these judges and people on my group right now, I know judges use pseudonyms and they have other people listen to what we're talking about. And so I've always said, I hope y'all have got all of your affairs in order, because some point something's going to happen. Yeah,
this next legislative session down in Austin should be very, very, very interesting.
So what we need to do is get a hold of, how would we know which legislators would be the people to contact? We need somebody doing research on that, and then just start emailing and calling.
Yeah. So when it comes to an average citizen contacting their legislator, it is always easiest to get in to see your own, and more difficult when you get outside of your area, because they look at your address and say, oh, you're not one of my constituents, so I'm not worried about you.
Right.
So contacting your own, setting up a meeting, face-to-face is always better than on the phone. Just fighting to get in there. But you can contact multiple legislators. I have met with legislators all over this state, and I'm not their constituent, but I did it because I hound them. I hound them, and then I go speak in their area to political groups that are very active. And then I ask that political group to get on the cell phone and call them and set up a meeting. And so every legislator should be on this, and it shouldn't be a partisan issue. I mean, it really shouldn't be a Democrat-Republican thing, because
No.
I identify as a conservative, not a Republican.
Right.
But unfortunately, it is. And there's also a lot of people with an R by their name who are former attorneys or still attorneys, or run around and have best friends who are judges that sit in these positions that we were wanting to come and make sure they're doing their job. So there is a lot of pushback. And then the other side, which is essentially the Texas bar, which is, Paxton's already called them a disgusting political group. And they are. They're supposed to be a licensing agency, but they actually have a lobby that lobby against changes in the legislation to fix this stuff. And on their website, they literally post a PDF that says, hey, attorneys, look what great work we did for you by killing all these bills and essentially making you more money. So, even the oversight area for the attorneys is in on it. It is such a lucrative business, and it is so easy to make money. I know attorneys who don't work in family law, who have taken family law cases and basically just stated, I was astounded when I went on there, the law went out the door. They don't follow the law, they don't follow procedure, they just do whatever they want. And it's insane. If you did this in a criminal court, you would be in front of the appellate court in a week, or in front of a federal court getting sued within a couple of months. But you do it in family court, and that's just how they operate.
Yeah, that's their norm there.
And I do know people that work in the family law space. There's an SREC out of Collin County. He's amazing. He takes family law cases, but he will be very open about the corruption, and it's all about how much money you can make. It's not about the child. And in the end, what we're doing is we're destroying generations of children. And then we say, oh my gosh, someone shot up Uvalde. Well, where'd he come from? Broken home.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, someone shot up Columbine. Where'd he come from? A dysfunctional home. And oh my gosh, they're pushing for mental health care in the schools without telling parents about it. Well, why are you sending all these broken kids? Oh yeah, because of broken homes. And everything that we complain about, and the fatherlessness and all those things, the starting place is the home. And our state does nothing to preserve the nuclear family. And it has done everything to monetize the destruction of children, and then we cry about it when they get older and do something.
Right. It's almost. I mean, like I say, 5-6 months ago, I didn't know any of this stuff, and when I first heard it, I got off the phone. I told one of my sons, I said, I just talked to a lady that's crazy. There's no way any of this could happen. That's why I tell people on the big group, you ought to jump over and listen to this stuff, because it's just so unbelievable that people have been getting away with this for 40 or 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, back in the 60s, I guess, and 70s, divorce wasn't that common. The woman just stayed in the marriage, took the abuse. But then when women figured out they could start working, and then in the 80s and 90s figured out they could make as much as their male partner, then things started to change. And then once the state of Texas figured out that they get all of this incentive for collecting this child support, well, then it's just a racket.
Oh yeah. Well, and so former President Reagan, when he was governor of California, I believe it was 1971, instituted no-fault divorce, right? And part of the reason was to get rid of all the false allegations and all this other kind of stuff, and make it easier for abused women to get out and all that, right?
Right.
Well, we know from research that the abuse rate in the divorces hasn't changed, and it's still not that high. And in fact, the vast majority of abuse, well, we won't go into that. It's not the men who are doing it. So we know that from research. But what we know is that when divorce was made easy, marriage was made throwaway, and there was no repercussions. And actually, if you were, 80% of divorces are filed by women. Men and women are just different. We think differently. So 80% of divorces are filed by women. In the state of Texas, 90+% of the time, women get primary custody. So they are literally getting paid to abandon their marriage, which damages their child. So if you're not getting abused, like real abuse, not all these newfangled made-up terms that we have, but like real abuse, you're literally getting paid to take off and start a new life and destroy your child. And when we look at the black community specifically, because a lot of people like to complain, but 70+% of black kids are raised in fatherless homes. It's devastated their community. But prior to no-fault divorce, 76% or 74% of black children lived in two-parent households. After no-fault divorce, it has flipped to where you have 20-something% of black children living in two-parent households. And we've seen what it's done to their community. It's doing it to all community. We've made the family a throwaway thing. And so I've been doing this years, testifying in cases, court watching and stuff like that. A judge can order anything they want in family court. Not legally, but they can order anything they want because they do. For anger management, drug and alcohol testing, psych evals, custody evals, this, that, and the other. Because there's a huge industry around it, and all those places they send you to, like that place you mentioned, They make tons of money off of this.
Yes.
They wouldn't exist if it weren't for the family courts.
Right.
And so judges can order all that stuff, right? Never once, not ever, even when it was requested by one of the parents, has a judge ordered that I'm aware of that the parents go to counseling for 6 months. And if you can't figure it out and get your marriage back on track, then come back and we'll proceed. Never, because there's no money in that.
Right.
But they can order all this other counseling, but they won't order counseling to save a marriage and save a child from being damaged because there's no money in it.
That's exactly right.
And we know from research that people who have filed for divorce, so they were done, but got through it and stayed together, actually have stronger, healthier marriages than people who never even thought about divorce. But on top of that, their child didn't get damaged the way they do when you will always damage a child in divorce. Always. No questions asked. Always. So their child didn't go through the damage, and now they have a stronger, healthier marriage, and their child has learned to work through things. But, as far as our family courts go, screw the kids. They don't really care about the kids. It's a farce. It's just a phrase, because all this research that I talk about was started in the 70s. So it's not new. It's like arguing that a kid should smoke 3 packs of cigarettes a day, right? And the court is saying, yeah, there's lots of money because he'll be a lifetime smoker. And an oncologist coming in and saying, no, we've known that cigarettes cause cancer, emphysema, bronchitis, heart disease, all this other stuff. So if you do this, you're going to destroy this child. And the courts are basically, best interest of the child, we're going to let them smoke 3 packs a day. Pretty much what the family courts do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a horrendous problem, and I think it goes farther. I think other people in the justice system in Tarrant County, Dallas County, every county, they know there's a problem, and everybody just lets it get passed.
Oh yeah.
So
I mean, it is a wide corruption. And speaking of Tarrant County, I know for a fact that Tarrant County is utterly corrupt in the family court. And so I see some messages and people say, well, I love the person in this court number. I'm like, yeah, but that's the person I'm talking about who openly admitted to violating a parent's civil rights and said, what are you going to do about it? And then she told the parent, I'm going to let the district judge hear all your hearings from here on out, and you'll never get anything ruled in your favor because we've already talked about it, and you'll never get a ruling in your favor. That's against the law. So she literally admitted to violating the Constitution, violating the rights of the child and the parent, and then said, you don't have a chance. You will never, ever get anything ruled in your favor because me and the other judge who I'm going to send you to have already decided. That's all against the law. Yet, this is in Tarrant County Court.
Yeah, something has to be done about it, and you've just given me another idea. I'm going to invite all of our Craig Goldman, Charlie Guerin, all of our representatives and senators onto the show, and I'm going to let people ask questions, and I'm not trying to shame them. I'm just trying to expose them. Either you're going to help do something or tell us the reason you're not.
Yeah, and so one of the things that I found that when I meet with legislators, so those who come up from a law background, which is quite a few of them, often have some idea of how corrupt it is. But if they didn't practice in that area, when you talk to them, they are like, oh my, I didn't know it was that bad. Others who do not have a law background have no clue. And when you speak to them and let them know what's going on, they're usually just literally dumbfounded. Like, you've got to be kidding. That's not possible.
Yeah, that's the way I was.
Phone calls after we meet, and then we'll talk to them again, and they'll be like, oh my God, this is a huge, apparently it's everywhere. Yeah. And so they don't even know. And that's the part from the public, the masses, the contacting legislators, to going to town halls and say, what are you going to do about this? Why is this still allowed to go on? Because the other side that's against this, and that's the family attorneys who make the money, the judges who don't want to lose their retirement, everybody making money off of it, even the counselors and evaluators who are making a gold mine off of this. They don't want anything to change.
Right.
So,
and they're making a gold mine. You're right about that.
Yes. So if it's a man talking, they'll label him as a deadbeat dad or a disgruntled this. And then when the women have started speaking out a lot more lately, because it doesn't happen just to men, it happens to women too, because you can be a party in either way. And so then they just call them all crazy. And so they're basically, this isn't happening. Well, it is happening because we have video of it. We have a thing, COVID, one of the beautiful things out of COVID is so many of these hearings were online and people recorded them. And you actually have judges being recorded violating the law. So they can't say they didn't do it. And that's why cameras and audio and video in the courtroom is so important. There's a judge out of Travis County who is openly gay. That's fine. Jesus said to love you either way. Openly gay, and has done interviews saying he'll always support the LGBT community and all this kind of stuff. Watched a hearing with him. The father had custody of the kids during the divorce. Mom claimed that both of the kids all of a sudden were transgender, came out of nowhere apparently, and that she wanted custody so she could take them, start getting gender transitioned. And the father said, no, that's something counseling. I've never even heard this. And the judge, who's openly, yelled at the father for denying them needed health care and took them away from the father, gave them to the mother, put the father on supervised visitation because he was abusing his kids by not recognizing them as transgender. And this was after the opinion that Attorney General Paxton came out with, that anybody who facilitates transgendering a minor is committing child abuse. So we have a judge on the bench removing the kids from a parent who wants to get his kids counseling and giving them to a parent who wants to transgender them after the Attorney General has said it's child abuse. So we have a judge who's facilitating child abuse from the bench. And this is insanity that happens every single day because they simply don't follow the law.
Yeah. So are you talking about our friend on that case?
No. Completely different case.
Wow.
No, this one's down in Austin.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds awful close to one that there's going to be a hearing on it tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and that's the thing. This stuff is widespread. It's all over the place. I witnessed a judge in Tarrant County accuse a father of parental alienation. And alienation actually has a very specific definition, but people tend to throw it around like they know what it means. She has no idea what it means. So she accuses the father of parental alienation because the father did not take his kids to the counselor she picked. So one, this judge has no qualifications in psychology. Actually, in my opinion, she has no qualifications in anything. But accused the father of alienating his child from the mother by taking him to a counselor that was close to his house. One has nothing to do with the other. So she threatened the father and then gave mother the primary decision making because dad didn't take them to the doctor that the judge preferred.
Wow.
And I mean, it's just insane. There's so much, so this man literally probably, I didn't follow the case. I don't know what happened in the end, but he probably lost the vast majority of his input, parenting, and oversight on these children because this crazy judge just decided, well, you didn't do what I say, so I'm going to take your kids away from you.
Yeah.
And the law says you can't do that. The law says it's supposed to be based on the best interest of the child. And at no point ever is it ever in the best interest of a child to interfere with the parent-child relationship unless there is overt abuse and neglect. And I'm talking sexual abuse, broken bones, beating them, terrorizing them, locking them in closets. Because I've worked with families, where kids come from that kind of background. So I know exactly. I'm also an expert in abuse and neglect. Go figure. But these judges will turn anything into best interest of the child because of their personal opinion. So you've got judges who think, 3-year-olds should have their penises cut off. So that's the best interest of a child, even though our attorney general says it's child abuse. But they just do what they want because they know that no one will hold them accountable. They won't be prosecuted. They won't be impeached. They won't be anything. It's basically free reign. It's kind of like the mafia. I just do whatever I want. Everybody's going to protect me.
Yeah, because they're all making money.
Oh, yeah. And they all donate, and they all have political connections. Because the judiciary, when it was created, was supposed to be the least powerful form of government of our 3 branches. They were supposed to be there to interpret, disagreements. But what they've done over the years is they've actually been the ones writing the laws that have made them the most powerful. Because judges are supposed to apply the law with what's called legislative intent, meaning however these lawmakers intended it is how it's supposed to be applied. But what they'll do is they'll twist it however they want and apply it that way. So, and they've got so many loopholes in there. Again, there's no oversight. There's no my catchphrase that I use all over this state, and for the people who are listening to me, because I understand, is family courts are to children what Planned Parenthood is to the unborn. The sole purpose is to destroy them and make money off doing so. That is it.
Yeah, it's and it's out of control. I mean, it's really out of control.
Well, and one of the things I find interesting, I've had multiple people that I associate with call me in the past few days talking about lots of people saying stuff about me all over Texas. And I said, I'm not famous. And they're like, you are out here. But I invite any judge, any family attorney, anybody who thinks this system is working as intended to sit down with me for a debate, a civil debate, and discuss it. I'm not a legal expert, so they should have a really easy time of it. But I've made that offer many times at places I've gone to speak, and I've never once had someone take me up on it.
It's hard to get a judge to come on my show, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and so a lot of them will say, I can't comment in public. No, that's not true because we have judges. Judge Wells in Fort Worth went down and testified against reforms to the family court. They testify all the time in Austin against change because they don't want it to change. But I've spoken to multiple appellate judges who openly admitted that they absolutely need change, and it's a corrupt, vile system. But they can't speak out because if these laws that we're talking about do get passed, they're going to be the ones hearing those court cases, and so they can't speak out publicly. But yeah, most of these people who are opposed to it, they're used to talking to people that don't have a knowledge base. And so they'll throw out some fancy terms or this or that or whatever, confuse them, and that works. But they typically won't sit down with someone who actually understands how it works. Because one of the hot button issues is audio and video in the courtroom. A lot of other states have it. If you've ever watched A&E's Chaos in the Courtroom, that's audio and video from a courtroom. And many judges have lost their jobs because of what was caught on those video cameras. That's why they don't want them in there. But the judges and some attorneys will say, no, 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 a court can't operate like that. You can't have audio and video in there. It won't work. And in my response, and this is why they won't talk to me, is that's amazing, because the U.S. Supreme Court and the Supreme Court of Texas both have audio and video in their courtrooms. They live stream and they post it and they leave it up there so you can see everything that happened, all the arguments, all the judges, everything. And they don't have a response to that. And the point is that every excuse they give you for the way things are working, it's an empty excuse. And then they just get angry and start yelling, which we had happen at an event in Collin County one night. The judge started yelling at us because when we confronted his arguments with logic, he got furious. So, they're not used to having to explain themselves or stand up for their position, because most people look at them as, little demigods, whereas the rest of us look at them like just some schmuck who just happened to get put on the bench, I mean, until recently, what you had to do is be a lawyer for 4 years. You didn't even have to try any cases to sit as a judge. I mean, it was a ridiculously low bar. And the Supreme Court of Texas has an advisory committee that meets, they actually just recently met. But in 2020, the advisory committee for the Supreme Court of Texas, in one of their meetings, and it's great, openly admit that attorneys donating to judges' campaign funds causes corruption, and that they buy hearings and verdicts. That they said it's legally, we know it's happening, and we got to stop it. And then they also openly acknowledge that many judges sitting on the bench have no business being there. They're utterly incompetent, and a lot of them are simply corrupt. And it's posted online. Everybody can go watch it if they want. So this is the advisory committee to the Supreme Court saying our system is so jacked up it's not even funny. But we have the people in the system saying, no, it's wonderful, it's amazing.
Yeah, I hear you. We've got a lot of people that are wanting to come to the roundtable meeting we're going to have Saturday, and I've told them all that it's going to be a closed meeting, but we are going to allow them to ask questions. I hope y'all are, we're going to start about 10. I hope y'all got a couple of hours to maybe work this thing, because there's a lot of people want to try to find out information, and there's 3 experts. You, Jeff Younger, and Jeff Morgan will all be there, and all we can do is just keep public awareness up and hold these politicians and these judges accountable. I'll call them out, you call them out, everybody calls them out.
No, and there's been a large movement in that direction. There's actually some YouTube channels and some Facebook places, and I'm not a big social media guy. I can barely figure. I hate it anyway. But some of these places that are exposing this stuff, there are literally parents showing up in court who aren't part of these groups or pages or media or whatever they are, and being accused by attorneys on the other side or the judge of being part of this group that posted a bunch of bad stuff about them online.
Right.
And sometimes sending them to jail for it.
Right.
And they're not even a part of it. So apparently there's a movement happening that these people are talking, that they would accuse a parent coming into court of being part of one of these media groups and putting them in jail for it when they weren't, which is also illegal. And the other part is I've apparently had multiple attorneys yell at their clients and talk bad about me, and I've never even met these people.
Right.
So somebody's getting uncomfortable somewhere.
Yeah, no, there is, and we're going to keep. I'm going to stay in the fight until something happens. And I know guys like you and Jeff Younger and Jeff Morgan, we just keep hammering the same story, and at some point, these people have got to be held accountable.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think their 2 biggest fears are, 1, losing that easy income, because most of these attorneys that work in family law could not work in any other area of law. They simply don't practice law. They practice relationships and slander, because you don't have to prove anything in family court. You can just say something, and your buddy, if you go on vacation with the judge, they say, "Oh yeah, sure, yeah, that's right." So they couldn't really get a job anywhere else in law. So the money's one. And two, if they're not, they should be worried about getting prosecuted.
Yeah.
Because while most of the discipline goes to the bar, which is can't prosecute anybody, all they can do is take your license, and they don't do that. So when all this changes, there will be attorneys getting prosecuted. There will be attorneys going to prison. There will be judges going to prison. And I think that terrifies them because, 2 years ago, they're like, yeah, when I retire, I'm going to be making over $100,000 a year in my retirement, which is insane. Why would we pay anyway? So they're going to lose their money and possibly go to jail. So, yeah, they're getting a little upset.
I've got 24 whistleblowers now, and about half of them said they'll testify. Paralegals, one court coordinator, I think she is, 2 or 3 attorneys, and they're all getting a little bit scared because they know that there's a lot of eyes on it now.
Yeah, and the retaliation would be unbelievable. I mean, because they'll retaliate against their employees just like they retaliate against their parent in court.
Sure, and you're not only you're taking away their livelihood, you're taking away these yachts and these homes they've got in Colorado and Santa Fe, New Mexico, and all of this stuff. They've lived a cush life, but I was told by a person that is running for office, and they told me about the RICO statute, and Giuliani used it to bust up the mob, and all you got to have is two players in concert, and they're all, we always talk about the good old boy system. That's what the good old boy system is. People are covering for the other person to not rock the boat, not lose their job, not lose this cush money. These people that do these evaluations and charge $1,800, and you can't put it on insurance. You got to pay half of it down, and the courts and the attorneys have already beaten these parents down so low they have no self-esteem, they have no money, they don't have anything.
I actually listened to last night or night before last, someone I know sent me a recording of a woman who attended mediation courses to become a mediator for family court. She got her certificate and everything else. And I believe she said it was taught by a judge.
Naturally.
But they would bring attorneys in to lecture the class on how things actually work. And essentially, she said all the attorneys and the judge who was leading this course said, our job is to drag it out as long as possible so that everybody can make as much money as possible. If we do our job right, we will get to mediate again and again. She said, it's not you do it right and you make sure nobody's happy, the judge can order mediation again. So she's literally telling them, jump on the solution for these parents so that you get called again.
Right.
And then the attorneys get the bill. And if you are a good mediator like that, these attorneys will always request you.
Sure.
So they get to bill their hours. And then she said, and these attorneys will often turn around and donate to that judge because they know that judge is going to award them attorney's fees. She said, so yeah, everybody's basically getting everybody else paid. And she said, once these parents are utterly broke and have no money and can't mortgage their house and have nothing else to sell, they'll agree to anything. And that's when we do our job to close it.
Well, that might be in some cases, but these cases that you and I both know about, I've had a paralegal that sat in on a session in chambers, and one of the attorneys said, "Well, my client wants a jury trial," and the judge said, "It doesn't matter what they say; she's never going to have custody of those kids."
Yeah.
So I mean.
Because one of the things, so I tell every parent who ever has to go into family court, request a jury trial. Always. Try to take it out of the hands of the judge. Because if they're a good judge, you're not really losing anything. And if they're a bad judge, you might gain something. But a judge, again, within family court, can refuse to allow people to testify, can refuse to allow evidence in. They can sabotage the entire case from the bench. And again, what can you do? You can file the complaints and stuff, but what will they do? Nothing. So a judge can tank your, and you'll hear about it Saturday. They can literally refuse to let expert witnesses testify who they themselves appointed to the case. So they appointed an expert and said, I need you to come back and tell me what you found. And when the expert came back and told them it was the opposite of what the judge heard, so he can strike their testimony and then refused to let them ever come back in and testify again. So because this guy came in and said the opposite of what you wanted to hear. So yeah, it's insane. I mean, it really is utterly insane, and there's nobody that can logically defend the way this system operates.
No,
because and that's why I invite them to debate with me. My only requirement is that it be video recorded.
They come down with these rulings to fit their narrative. They look at who the attorney is. Well, we got to get this Psych Valve company in here. I'm sure they're going to need some money. I mean, it's just like handing out Christmas cards every day.
Yeah, and usually the people that run the places that get all the psyche valves, I'm working on a case out of the Panhandle, family court case. It's always the exact same place that gets it. They always make the exact same recommendation, which is always the exact recommendation that the judge made in the first place. And it's just, that's how they do business, and they're friends and they all know each other and they all belong to the same country club and eat dinner together, which is also a conflict because you're not supposed to do that. There's that guy Dolcefino. He's got a YouTube channel. You just go on there and look at the number of judges who when they took the bench, now their ex-law partner is arguing cases in front of them and they have like an over 90% win rate. Well, one, that's illegal. You can't do it. But they do it. So they violate, state and federal law on a daily basis with zero repercussions. And in the end, we are destroying generations of children. And we're seeing that destruction all throughout our society right now.
Yeah, and it's getting worse. But I guarantee you, in Tarrant County, there's been a posture change down at the courts, and I think it's going to continue because they know there's a lot of eyes on them right now. It's not going to be as easy because there's people like us that are openly talking about it. Hell, when I went down
there might be a posture change, but I believe for the most of these people, they simply don't know how to do what's right.
No, well,
I think they're more into covering their butts than they are actually following the law and doing what's best for a child.
Oh yeah, they don't know how to do what's right because they hadn't had to do it in the last 15 years or however long they've been on the bench. Mm-hmm. It's hook or crook has been the way to get them there, and they thought they had a free reign, and somehow it's going to come to an end.
Yeah, and that's our goal of working with all the legislators that we're working with. When I say we, I don't work with anybody. It's just anybody. So I'm not part of any group, but anybody who is moving in the same direction to me, I don't care if you have a D or an R behind your name or what it is. If you're moving in that direction, I will help you.
Sure.
On that issue.
We need to
so lots of stuff for various people, groups, organizations. Anybody that is pushing for change, I will help them.
Saturday, before we break up that meeting, we need to discuss how the four of us can move forward and we can get the ball rolling. We got people that are going to get behind us because people want things to be done right. They don't want crooked judges, crooked lawyers. And, I've got people following the money right now. There's whole lots of these judges that get these $1,000 donations from these law firms, and you wouldn't believe all the names they put these donations in. Dead people, people. Yeah. I mean, it's astounding. So my word to these people that are operating illegally is better watch your back.
Well, and that's another thing that the average person can literally do. There's a website, Transparency USA, I think it is. Anyway, if you're a politician, everybody's donated to you is going to be listed on there. And if you've donated to a politician, you're going to be listed on there and who you gave to. So you can literally pull up the law firms who they've donated to, the judges. But when it comes to politicians, you can pull them up and see who their top donors are. And the top donor is a business or a company, sometimes a foundation, like maybe the Reese Jones or whatever. You can contact their donor, because they have people that's all they do is field calls for grants and stuff. You can contact them and say, listen, I know that you give to Senator so-and-so and Representative so-and-so. Are you, strong nuclear families and protecting children? Oh, yes, absolutely. And if they say no, then hang up on them. But if they say yes, say yeah, absolutely, because I know that there's a push for legislation, and you've spaced and given the overview. Our family courts and our CPS, every institution we have that's supposed to protect children is not and has monetized breaking them. And so, I would like you to contact Representative so-and-so and Senator so-and-so and let them know that you too, the person who gives them the most money, would like to see this change. And that's how you get some stuff changed, because when the pocket or the checkbook calls and says, hey, what's going on? This stuff needs to stop. I guarantee you legislators will get on board.
Yeah. We need to map all of that out on Saturday. I'm going to pick your brain on Saturday. Okay, Brooks, I'm going to let you go. I'm sure you're like everybody else. We've been on here for about an hour. I will see you Saturday at my office at 10 a.m. I've already confirmed with Jeff Younger and Jeff Morgan. I'll send out a text to him. But we got to do something to help Rustin Wright. That case is ridiculous. It started 18 years ago. His son's now 17. It started when he was 1 month old. How does that happen? I mean, people say, how could that possibly happen? They act like that couldn't be but 1 in a million. Hell, it's 1 in 5.
Yeah, it's an astronomical number. And Saturday you're going to have 3 very different people. Jeff Younger is very erudite and intellectual, and Jeff Morgan is very animated, and I'm just a dude. So, they'll be bookending me.
Yeah, well, we'll sit down and hopefully we'll have many more meetings like it. And we're going to have to just get the masses to get behind us, and we got to get some of these politicians. The district attorney's office is going to be an important race here in Tarrant County, and I publicly stated how I feel about it, and I've talked to the person that I hope to be the candidate or the DA, and she
I watch that.
At least she is on board to, hey, I'm going to check into it. Anything that I can do. And she publicly said, she said, I'd never heard of 2503 before I came on your show. And now she said, oh my God, there's a lot of stuff going on. And the entire system. And, because I would have loved to talk to her, but I didn't. But, and within the space that we're talking about, one of the big issues is, so I've already mentioned the destruction of the black family from no-fault divorce, right? Right.
But also the incentives for mothers to not be married and to fight the father being in the child's life, because it's child support, it's Section 8 housing, it's all kinds of stuff. You can actually make a very good living off of all that stuff.
Right. They're giving perks.
Yes. But when it comes to the black men are imprisoned or jailed exponentially higher than anybody else for failure to pay child support. And one of the things that happens when you're unable to pay child support, they have to have an ability to pay hearing, meaning, do you actually have the ability to pay? And if you do and you're hiding money, well, then we might throw you in jail because you're, But for the majority of these black men, they don't know the law. They get appointed a public defender who either doesn't care or is part of the system. They don't even tell them they have to have an ability to pay hearing, because many of them don't. And they jail them illegally without an ability to pay hearing because they didn't know to ask for it, because their attorney didn't represent them properly. And it's a massive problem. Black men get jailed so frequently for child support because they literally just don't know the law. But the thing is, they shouldn't have to know the law in order for it to be followed.
No.
And it's not
No.
followed.
No, the system, I've said forever, there, Tarrant County, Dallas County, the state of Texas, the whole country, not everybody's got a seat at the table, and there is a double standard, and maybe a triple standard, and it needs to stop. I mean, hell, we're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you've got some money, then you can get a better attorney, but any person should be afforded the right to have good representation. And it's, you know, I talked to a family court attorney the other day, and he said, Larry, the problem that these pro se litigants have is they don't know how to present their case, so therefore their evidence, which is rock solid, never gets entered.
Well, and that's true for some, but I personally know two men who've been pro se in front of the Supreme Court of Texas. And the vast majority of attorneys have never even been in front of an appellate court. And so these two men, pro se, have argued cases in front of the Texas Supreme Court. And so even with their knowledge, and arguably they have more legal knowledge than probably 90% of the attorneys practicing out there, period, because they have taught themselves this over the years. That this has been their fight for, you know, some of them 7-8 years. But even with that, and knowing how to introduce their evidence, they just simply won't take up family court cases. The federal courts won't take them up. So if you do the exact same thing in a criminal court, federal court will take it up and smack down the judge. But in the family court case, they simply won't do it because they know if they open the floodgates, it is going to be a deluge. It's going to be a flood. It's going to overwhelm. And that's what we're trying to get to happen. But one of the things about being pro se is one of the things that we're working on with the legislators is simplifying the family code so that there is almost never a need for an attorney because you're almost never going to go in front of a judge except for in extraordinary circumstances. So you literally have everything mapped out because in a no-fault divorce, by definition, there is no fault. So there should be no arguing about who did what because you're claiming there's no fault. If you want to file for a at-fault divorce, still possible. Get your attorney and go that route. But the reason nobody files for an at-fault divorce is because usually there is no fault. Right. Someone just decided to leave.
Yeah.
And so they don't go for at-fault divorce because now you have to present evidence stuff. Whereas, you know, but yeah, one of our goals is to have it that when people get stuck in, especially because it only takes one person to get a divorce, fine, we go through the process. There's no need to even hire an attorney. You know, we can keep that money and pay for our child's college education instead of paying for his child's college education.
Exactly.
Because most divorces do not need to actually go to court and hearings and everything else. That's just a function of the system that's trying to run up the bill.
Right. I think something else, I've had Matt Krause on many times. He's been down in Austin fighting that fight. I think I'll get him back on and maybe one of y'all at the same time and either in person or by phone. And Matt can maybe give us some pointers on how to try to get this thing going.
Mm-hmm. No, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, Brooks, I'm going to let you go, and I will see you at my office at 10 a.m. on Saturday.
Yes, sir.
Okay, buddy.
Thank you much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye-bye.
That's Dr. Brooks McKenzie. I can't even repeat all of his awards and his PhD and all of that, but he's very knowledgeable about how it damages the child. And, you know, I think these family courts forget it's supposed to be about the child. It's not supposed to be about the attorney firm or the judge or any of that. It's supposed to be about the child. And just like he said, he's never even heard of a judge saying, hey, you know what? Why don't you two go to counseling and let's revisit this in 6 months and maybe y'all can work out your issues and we don't have to do any of this. That's a thought. Wonder why some of these judges had never thought of that. I can assure you, Brooks doesn't sound like he's as enthused as I am about, can we change the system? We can. You can do anything. I made the mistake one time of telling one of my employees many, many years ago. She asked me, you think I can ever really make it in this business, the detail business? And I said, sure you can. And she said, she was leaving me. She said, I'm going to go out to California. My uncle has a paint and body shop, and I'm going to see if I can start doing details. And I said, good. And at the time, I knew I should have never let that lady go. I should have offered her the moon. She runs the biggest detail operation and paint and body operation in California, not just Los Angeles. She's got like 100 locations. And I'm very proud of her. She was always a hard worker, but she had the moxie. She knew what she was doing. She took chances. It worked out, and I'm proud of her. She has come and revisited with me several times over the years, and she uses the same business model that I do. I basically hire Hispanic females because, in my opinion, they do the best detail work on the planet, bar none. I don't ever rush them. I tell them, do every car like it's your mother's, and it just works out. So we can do this, but we're going to need help. At some point, I'm going to have to get the other group involved on a large scale. Our total group participation's over 183,000 now. We're growing pretty doggone quick. So if you don't have a dog in this fight, or if you don't have family in it, you need to do it just because it's right. And all I'm asking you to do is spread the word. When you go to church and after church, hey, these family courts here, they need to be looked at. There's no oversight. That's what we were just discussing. This group's down in Austin, and they basically call the judge up and say, hey, we've had these allegations, you did this, or this. Oh, hell, that they're wrong. Okay, thanks, have a good day. And there it goes. So I'm fortunate that I know the governor, the attorney general, several people, and Abbott's already called me and said, hey, what are you stirring up down there now? And I said, I'm not stirring it, it's already here, Greg. You need to send somebody down here or up here to look into this, an independent auditor or an investigator. I said it'll blow your mind if the person is legal and if the person wants to do the right thing, because these laws are openly broken every day. Judges telling people, it doesn't matter if we go to jury or whatever, you're never going to see your kids again. They openly say that to litigants. There was a case, where was it? I talked about it. I was amazed. They actually sanctioned a family court judge, and it said the judge agreed to it. Well, what would have happened if he hadn't agreed? He wouldn't have got, all they did is suspend him for a month without pay. It was in West Virginia. And the same things we're talking about right here in Fort Worth and Tarrant County is the same things happened in West Virginia. And this guy was just rude to the bone, to litigants, to people in the court. And I've heard the same stories here. It's just over and over and over again. and somebody's got to stand up and do something about it. So we're going to have this meeting on Saturday at 10, and these three guys I've just now gotten involved in it in the last 5 or 6 months. But Jeff Younger, Jeff Morgan, and Brooks McKenzie, they're all seasoned veterans in it. So what we need is I need your support. Hold on, I'm sending a message. We need your support, and at some point I'll bring the big group into it so we can pump it up to 140 or 50,000 people, and there just has to be a change. These legislatures, I'm going to start calling all of our representatives and have them come on the show and point blank ask them, are you going to do something about some of this stuff that's going on in family court? And some people just aren't aware of it. Like I say, when I first found out about it, I said there is no possible way any of what I just heard is true. Not in Tarrant County, not in my state, not in the country. Hell, it's all over the country. I had people calling me saying, is that true? And I said, they're either all reading the same playbook or, yeah, it's true. And I mean, I've heard stories. Well, this case that we're going to be talking about Saturday started when this gentleman's son was 1 month old. The kid's 17. Almost 18 years they've been in court on this deal. How is that possible? How does that happen? Using the same people for psych evaluations. Well, to me, that's unethical. So I'm going to go sit in on the county commissioners and ask them, we've only got one psych eval place in Tarrant County? And all these attorneys have said, no. I've had judges tell me, no, we can use several. Well, why are we all using the same one? That doesn't, the optics of that is not good. Law firms lawyers that get judges to sign documents without reading them, judges, you need to be careful. These cameras come in smallest sizes now. Shoot, I could probably, well, I couldn't walk into a courtroom with my hat on, but these cameras are very small now. So there's a lot of eyes watching this stuff. And I'm going to keep bringing it out in front of the public every chance I get. Well, Larry, you're going to hurt the way they make money. I don't care. You know, I'm living on borrowed time anyway. They can do whatever they want to try to do to me. I provide a platform for the little person, for the regular people. I could care less about the people that go to the country clubs and the Fort Worth Club and the Petroleum Club. That's great. I'm glad you guys are over there. I'm with the masses, the people that go out to eat, go to ball games, go high school ball games, go to school carnivals and stuff. We're all just alike. We all put our pants on the same way. And I'm tired of these elitists that want to try to run over the masses and make their money out of it. That's what you're doing. Yeah, they're going to fight back because you're going to take their livelihood away and possibly put them in the penitentiary. So, wake up, courts. And like I say, it's just so massive, it's all over. They're all using the same playbook. Second time I ever walked into a family court here in Tarrant County, the bailiff is a member of my group. Said, "Hey Larry, how you doing?" And I said, "Yeah, how you doing?" "Sir, sit down and shut up." I looked at, "You talking to me?" "Yeah, she was talking to me." Boy, that tune changed. The next time I saw her, she invited me in for a cup of coffee. First time that I know of, the way I really got into this, I had a gentleman bring a car in, and it was a high-end car, and we got to talking. He said, "Well, you done some work for me 3 or 4 years ago," and so we were talking. I said, "What do you do for a living?" "I'm a lawyer." "What kind of law?" "Family." I said, "Wow, I've been talking about family law on my podcast. Would you be interested in coming on?" "Sure, yeah." He didn't have any idea who he's talking to, I guess, that I had a Facebook group of 140 or 50,000. And I said, "Well, how much money do you charge an hour?" He said, "Whatever I want." I said, "Whatever you want? That's kind of ballsy. How's that work?" He said, I wear a Rolex. He said, "Would you sell your watch for X number of dollars?" I said, "Nope." But he said, "At some point, you would sell it." And I said, "Sure." He said, "That answers your question." "Oh, no, wait a minute." He said, "At some point, you'd sell it." And then he said, "How about one of your kids?" I said, "No, there's no price on my kids." He said, "That answers your question." So I said, "Okay, so how do you know how much money you can get?" He said, "The first time they come into my office, they have to bring their financials." "Okay. How do you know what you can guarantee them?" "In 2 courts, I can guarantee them favorable results." "What does that spell?" "RICO." Can you believe an attorney actually told me that? I tried to get him to come on my show, and was told, "We're not coming back for a detail, and we ain't never coming on no show." That's all right. I'm not taking dead aim at family law attorneys. I'm taking dead aim at any of them that are on a take, that are crooked, that's whatever. Like I say, I've got an investigator following these donations. Man, you wouldn't believe all the names they make donations in. Some of you big law firms, y'all need to double check those things that you're filing. Everybody says, "Well, it's just a slap on the wrist." Yeah, but that's just part of the puzzle. We follow in a lot of the parts of the puzzle. And like I say, I've got 24 whistleblowers. Some of them work in the court system, in the attorney's offices, and those folks are scared that they're going to get nailed somehow. So, and about half of them said they would testify. So, it's going to get a little shaky down there. I'm not trying to do anything that, or go after anybody that, I know we've got a lot of good judges, a lot of good attorneys. I have no problem. It's these judges that make these outlandish decisions and tell people that I'm going to put you in jail and take your kids and have them adopted out. I mean, I just can't believe they openly tell people that. And other people in the judiciary, they know what's going on. You might be in the criminal courts building or civil courts building. You know what's going on. People talk. Well, the jig's up. I'm opening the Venetian blinds. We're going to start looking in on this stuff. I just can't believe these litigants that have just been hammered. Everything taken from them. Everything. They don't have any money. They don't have any self-esteem. They don't have anything. They're just beaten down to the bone. So, y'all got somebody on your side. 180,000 people as soon as I get through talking to all of them. And our group, we're a family-oriented community-minded group of loving and caring people here in Fort Worth and Tarrant County. And we don't like that stuff. Just operate on the up and up and everybody will love you. And anybody that wants to contact me, I'm the easiest person in town to get a hold of, and your identity stays with me. They can put me in jail or whatever they want to do. I'll never tell. But we're getting closer every day. We're getting more people coming on our side. We're getting more people telling their stories. And that's all it takes. You know, where you see smoke, there's fire coming. And there's a lot of smoke out there right now. We're going to have a big group discussion Saturday at 10 a.m. Jeff Younger, Jeff Morgan, and Dr. Brooks McKenzie. It's going to be about a 2-hour roundtable discussion. And we're going to be highlighting Rustin Wright's case I believe it's out of Parker County. His son, Aiden, it all started when he was born. A month later is when it started in family court. And the kid's 17 now, and they're still in family court. At some point, something's got to be done. One of the candidates that's running for a family court spot, Crystal Gaydon, on one of my interviews with her, I asked her specifically about excessive litigation. She said, yes, it does happen. I can spot it, and I'll stop it. Crystal, I hope if you watch this video that you'll, I think she's on this video. If you watch this video or you hear it, I hope we can hold you to those words. And I believe her. I've talked to her, I've interviewed her many times. It's going to take somebody standing up. And you're not going to be the most popular person down at the courthouse either. But, you know, at some point it's got to change. We got to have some change. So, this election that's coming up, midterms, is going to be important. And these judges, we got to start court watching. We got to be going down there in masses. Heck, I'll get a deal with one of these transit companies. We'll just carry 40, 50 people down there at a time and have 5 or 6 people in each court filling out paperwork. The days of people, judges, lawyers running roughshod over some of these litigants is coming to an end. Y'all just need to figure it out. Okay, love each and every one of you. I do everything I can do every single day of my life to try to make a better Fort Worth and a better Tarrant County. I could care less about the city to the east or basically anywhere else in our state. I'm homebound. I'm Cowtown. So jump on board. We're going to make a change. See y'all tomorrow.